Good morning. I'm Gregory Longini of the Board Secretary of the Chicago Transit Board. On March 3rd of this year, the Office of the Secretary issued a notice of change format of committees. I'm Gregory Longini of the Delivery Board Secretary Audit and Budget and Transit Board meeting scheduled for March 9th, 2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. There is currently in effect a statewide disaster declaration as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been renewed from month to month since the start of the pandemic. Pursuant to Section 7, the head of the Chicago Transit Authority has determined that it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person meeting in light of the ongoing disaster. This means that as permitted by this section of the Open Meetings Act, there will not be any in-person public meetings. The Chicago Transit Authority public meetings on March 9th, 2022 will take place only virtually. We will start with the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Chairman Irving.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. I would like to call to order the March 9th, 2022 meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Greg, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Director Ortiz.
Here.
Director Miller. Director Miller. Director Miller, are you here? Director Barkley.
Present.
Chairman Irvine.
I'm here.
Director Miller, are you here?
I'm here.
All right, then we have a quorum with all four members of the committee present. Let the record show that Director Jakes and Director Silva are also sitting on the meeting, and that President Carter and Acting General Counsel Brad Jansen are also at the meeting. Chairman Irving.
Thank you. Our first order of business today is the approval of the February 9th, 2022 committee minutes. We need a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Take the vote. Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Yes.
Chairman Irvine.
Yes.
That motion passes with all four votes, sir.
Thank you. Our next order of business today is an electric bus report presentation. And for that, we have Mike Connolly. Take it away, Mike.
Morning. Morning, directors. I'm Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. We wanted to share information about the recently completed bus electrification study and the status of our bus fleet. If you would, go to the next slide. Last month, CTA released Charging Forward, our study report, which outlines a roadmap for full bus fleet electrification by 2040. This is a complex undertaking requiring much more than just buying electric buses. Our bus maintenance and storage facilities will need to be upgraded and converted to provide charging and to enable daily electric bus operations. The study looked at which technology to invest in, where to install charging, how to sequence the electrification of bus garages and bus routes, ways to coordinate the needed electric charging upgrades with other modernization needs on our system, and it sets up a timetable to reach the 2040 goal for full fleet electrification. CTA has been in touch with environmental and other advocacy groups, both during the study and leading up to the release. Briefings were held for elected officials and other leaders, and the response has been very positive. We talked to CNT, CMAP, Active Trans, the Respiratory Health Association, as well as aldermen, state senators, and Cook County commissioners. If you would, go to the next slide. Technology for bus electrification and charging is still evolving. CTA looked at and analyzed 3 different levels of potential change in technology, including the current battery levels, moderate improvement, and significant technology improvement. We developed a pathway to full fleet electrification by 2040, given each of the potential levels of technology advancement. CTA has chosen to proceed with the overhead pantograph type charging in most part. This has evolved as the industry standard for United States applications of electric buses. The bus stops under an overhead pantograph, which lowers to make contact with the charging plate on the roof of the bus. This photograph shows the pantograph extending down to make contact with the top of a CTA bus. This can be accomplished at a bus stop, as this photo shows at Navy Pier, by using a mast with an arm that extends out over the top of the bus. This type of overhead charging is also easily installed inside a bus service bay in the area normally used for daily fueling and cleaning. These Pantograph type chargers can also be installed in bus parking areas to charge buses passively while they are sitting parked overnight. The Pantograph units can be programmed for either slow charging during a parking cycle or fast charging during the 10-minute layover at the end of a route or in the wash bay. If you would go to the next slide. This photo shows 2 diesel buses in the garage at the current fueling islands. Buses pull in at the end of their service day and they're checked for defects, refueled, and cleaned inside and out. For electric bus charging, an overhead pantograph would be installed, and the bus would receive energy to be stored in its batteries rather than energy stored as gallons of diesel fuel in a tank. The time needed for the charging cycle can be performed during the routine servicing time frame currently scheduled. Garages will probably use different combinations of fast charging, typically in the fuel islands, and slow charging in parking spaces. The preferred strategy that we're intending to proceed with requires about 500 slow charger cabinets throughout our 7 garages and 30 fast chargers across all the garages in the fuel islands. A limited network of en-route fast chargers is estimated to include 12 to 13 en-route locations. These can extend the electric bus range to cover long blocks of work, which exceed the carrying capacity of today's battery technology. The en route charging locations will most likely be charging hubs, where multiple bus routes can utilize the chargers, such as the current locations at Navy Pier and at Midway Airport. CTA has already begun discussions with PACE to implement equipment sharing at large bus terminals where we share space, such as at Jefferson Park or 95th Street Station. If you would, go to the next slide. Equity has been the guiding principle for designing our plan for embarking on this fleet conversion. The map on this slide was created by the Chicago Department of Health to index air quality and health impacts across the city of Chicago. The red shows the areas with the greatest air quality impacts, and the green are the areas with the least air quality impacts. Now, while CTA diesel bus exhaust is a very small fraction of the total emissions picture, and most air quality impacts are from industrial facilities, freight rail yards, truck depots, or truck traffic, CTA has chosen to begin our electric bus implementation on the west and south sides of the city where the air quality impacts are heaviest. The Chicago Garage, as indicated in the blue box near the top right-hand corner of this map, already has our electric buses in operation, and they're in operation on the west side of the city in those areas with the red coloration on there. The 103rd Garage installation is in engineering and design right now, and will follow with construction, and buses for that location will come from an already awarded federal grant. If you don't mind, go to the next slide. There are 2 parts to this slide. The list on the left provides a sequence for converting all the CTA garages into electric facilities. The map on the right is complex. It maps the location of the CTA bus garages as well as the routes that are operated out of each garage. We'll take that map apart in just a moment. But to focus on the list at the left, you can see that the recommended order of garage conversions starts with Chicago Garage and 103rd Garage, followed by 77th and 74th, potentially a new garage that doesn't exist today that CTA would build, Kedzie Garage, Forest Glen Garage, and North Park Garage. They're arranged in order, and the right-hand side of that table on the left side of this slide indicates the equity prioritization from very high at the top to low at the bottom. CTA did 2 separate analyses on all of these garages in going into this process to look at the equity impacts. We looked not only at the air quality impacts that we saw in the previous slide, but we looked at it from our Title VI analysis factors, which are low income and minority riders. We looked at 2 parts to each of those analyses for each garage. One is to look at the half-mile radius around the actual location of the garage to determine the impact on the surrounding residences. And then the other was to actually take each route for each garage and do an analysis of low income and minority, as well as air quality impacts. So this really prioritizes equity for CTA as we go forward in both ways. Next, we're going to deconstruct the map on the right-hand side to show you the individual bus routes operating out of each garage. If you would, Herb, flip to the next slide. Thank you. It focuses on Chicago Garage, which is located at the intersection of Chicago Avenue and Pulaski on the west side of the city. The map identifies the bus routes which operate from this garage. They cover the east-west routes in the near to mid-north side, as well as some north-south routes on the far west side of the city, and some routes that extend into the central portion of the city and the north part of the south side. If you would, go to the next slide. This maps the bus routes operating out of 103rd Garage. It is on the far south side of the city at 103rd Street, just east of Cottage Grove in a very industrial section of the city near Torrance. The bus routes operated out of this garage cover the far south and southeast portions of the city, as well as some routes operating locally or on the drive into downtown. If you would, go to the next slide. The 77th bus garage is mapped on this slide. It is located on between 79th and 77th Street, just west of the Dan Ryan Expressway. It is co-located with our bus heavy maintenance or South Shops facility, which is where all of the heavy repairs are done on all of the buses from all of the garages. The bus routes operated from 77th Garage cover the south side, east and west, as well as north and south, operating mostly on the east side of the south side. If you would, go to the next slide. This is the map for 74th Garage, which is at 74th Street and Wood in the mid-south section of the city. The bus routes cover east-west routes across the south side, routes on the far west near Midway along the I-55 corridor, and some north-south routes, some long north-south routes in the central area, such as Western and Ashland Avenue. Go ahead and flip to the next slide, if you would. This is for Kedzie Garage, which is on the west side of the city. It's located at the Eisenhower Expressway and Kedzie Avenue. It covers many routes that are running east and west across the central part of the city, as well as the north part of the south side of the city, routes that are into Pilsen and Little Village, as well as into Lawndale and Bronzeville. Many of the routes that serve the downtown are operated out of Kedzie, as it's our closest garage to the downtown. If you would, flip to the next slide. The Forest Glen Garage is located in the far northwest section of the city at Elston Avenue near the intersection of Bryn Mawr and Central. The bus routes based on this garage serve the east-west routes on the north side of the Chicago, some north-south routes at the far western edge of the city, and routes in Skokie and Lincolnwood, as well as the Milwaukee Avenue route. That's the angle route that you see coming out of the northwest side, operating into downtown. And the next slide, if you would, this actually maps out the routes that are operated out of North Park Bus Garage. It is at the corner of Foster and Kedzie on the north side. The bus routes based at this garage serve the northeast corner of Chicago, extend into the city of Evanston, and cover the north lakefront corridors into downtown, including both express routes on DuSable Drive itself and the associated local service on the inner drive, as well as routes like the 22 Clark and the 36 Broadway. If you would, go on to the next slide. This chart on this slide actually provides a more detailed view of the sequence for bus fleet electrification, focusing on the garages themselves. Again, this is that same list of bus garages that we have already seen. They're in order from the first and second to be done, Chicago and 103rd, through 77th, South Shops, and 74th in the Mid-South, and then extending to a new garage, Kedzie Garage, and then Forest Glen and North Park on the north side. The planned facility improvements are timed to space out the significant modernization projects. This sequence ensures that major construction projects consider the available funding, the lead time necessary, and other resources available, and to downplay any operational disruption involved. The electric buses are planned for each transition year, and this will accommodate the number of buses coming in and reaching into our fleet, making sure that we have charging available for all of the buses that we bring in. The year that the bus garages were built is on the left side of this table in blue. These bus garages range from the newer garages, which are from 1994 and 1995, to our oldest garages, which actually date back to 1902 and 1903. Those were trolley barns back when they were first opened, but have been turned into bus garages. Right now, they're diesel bus garages, but we're going to change them into electric bus garages over time. The newer buses are able to support electric buses sooner, and that makes a difference for us. But we've stayed with our equity prioritization in this to make sure that we bring the benefits of electric buses to our most low income and minority parts of the city earliest. If you would go to the next slide. And this actually indicates the potential transition timeline. The light blue bars are the diesel buses. The dark blue bars are electric buses in the fleet. This is arranged from 2022 on the left side to 2040, when we'll be 100% electric on the right side. And you can see the percentage of buses through the years as we go through and bring them in. The black boxes at the bottom indicate when garages will be available for charging, and that, of course, corresponds with when we'll bring in larger number of electric buses. We do expect that we'll be operating mixed fleets at several garages during the conversion, with both electric and diesel buses in operation as we transition from the current diesel fleet to our future electric fleet. If you would, you could go to the next slide. In order to maintain reliability of the fleet as we transition, CTA will continue to need to replace older diesel buses with new diesel buses for the next 4 years. The new diesel buses will provide significant emissions reductions and are needed in the short term to ensure that we can continue to provide service reliability as we begin to convert. The two biggest challenges to moving faster are limited manufacturing capacity at the bus builders and the need for increased electric supply and charging infrastructure at the CTA bus garages. Although the bus manufacturing companies are ramping up production of electric buses, the American Public Transit Association data indicates that in 2019, only 100 electric buses were delivered, with over 2,000 diesel buses delivered. In 2020, there were almost 200 electric buses, but still over 2,000 diesel buses. In each of these years, there's been a ramp up, and we're seeing that in the future. We're seeing it in the current level, but we're looking forward to a time when the bus builder will be able to supply us with more electric buses than they can today. If you would go on to the next slide. There is an order of 100 diesel replacement buses that is being delivered this year from late spring to early autumn. These were placed on order last year, but on the purchasing agenda for today's meeting, there's a change order to purchase 3 additional electric buses with available funding and to exercise an option for 100 more diesel bus replacements to be delivered starting this fall. 100 buses is only 5% of our fleet. In the interim, CTA is logging data on our electric buses and learning from our electric bus deployments. Plans are underway for the necessary infrastructure upgrade. We have 8 electric buses out in operation every day. We have 10 more being prepped to go out in the next several weeks. We're also reviewing our 5-year capital improvements program and our bus replacement schedule to make changes that will be needed to incorporate the findings of the Charging Forward study. Training and support are ongoing in both bus operations and in our vehicle maintenance departments. If you don't mind, go to the next slide. The replacement diesel buses will not only provide lower emissions, but will also save CTA operating costs. With few exceptions, the federal government has been steadily reducing the allowable emissions, not only for automobiles, but for heavy trucks and buses. The buses that we are replacing now were delivered in 2006. They met the requirements at that time, 16 years ago. However, the current standards are much more stringent and engine technology is much better. The replacement buses will emit 22% less carbon dioxide, 80% less nitrous oxides, and 49% less particulate matter than the buses that are being replaced. Here in Chicago, the NOx, or nitrous oxides, are the prevalent cause of our poor air quality days that we have in the summer. Please go on to the next slide there. This picture shows a photo of the dashboard of one of CTA's electric buses in service. The dial at the left is a speedometer and looks familiar to most people. The dial at the right is the battery state of charge indicator. And it has red and green and the dial that you can see so that the operator can monitor how they're doing with their electric charge. The central information panel, the small rectangle in the center, gives the bus operator some feedback on how their operating actions can affect energy consumption, as well as giving the operator the projected range in miles. We have built electric bus charging stations on both terminals of the Chicago Avenue bus route, and one at Navy Pier at the east end and one at Chicago and Austin on the west end. We're fully engaged in our electric bus deployment, as I mentioned, with the buses on street daily logging in data to support future implementations. We have an advanced data collection software called Vericity, which is giving us a wealth of information on operating characteristics, on varying energy use depending on the route that the bus is assigned to, and on charging behavior and charging intervals. In addition, we are advancing infrastructure improvements to bring adequate power to 103rd Garage for the next deployment, while performing a deeper study of the ultimate power consumption needs we will address as we transition from fully diesel to fully electric on the remainder of our system. So CTA is charging forward toward full fleet electrification by 2040. The study has given us a roadmap on how to get there. If you would, go to the next slide. This is the last slide in the deck, and I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you have. This picture is actually a photograph of the electric substation for charging at Chicago and Austin on the west side of the city of Chicago. This is also an example of CTA's public art program, where we've attached a piece of public art to the front of the substation. This is Sunburst by the artist Shanique Smith, a Black woman from Brooklyn who practices out of LA. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that directors may have.
Thank you, Mike. Greg, you are muted.
Thank you, Mike. Chairman Irving, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a great presentation, and I'm so happy we got this report out. So, Mike, kudos to you and your team for all the work on this. It's great to see the roadmap getting us to the future. So, thank you. How are the Pantograph chargers working over the winter?
They're actually working very well. We didn't have any trouble there. The charging plate on the top of the bus actually has a heating element in it, so it stays ice and snow free even in the worst weather. So that we always get a good mate from the pantograph coming down. And the pantographs themselves were designed for outdoor operation. It's the same pantograph that's in operation in Manitoba, Canada right now. So we know that they've been tested in the cold weather.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions at this time.
Have we decided who the manufacturer of the electric buses is going to be?
We're actually able to use several manufacturers, and so we can do a competitive procurement to determine who will deliver those buses. Right now, there are, I think, 5 firms in the market, and there's a 6th one who will be coming on. So that we haven't made a prior decision, but we'll make a decision on each group of buses as we order. I would expect over time we'll have several different manufacturers here.
The operating cost, okay, of every bus, do they vary quite a lot, or they are?
The electric buses actually save us money on energy. We're projecting that the maintenance costs won't be that different, so that we're projecting that there will be some not significant cost savings, but that there will be some reduction in the costs in the future. But we don't think it's significant, and we're not doing this to save money. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do for the air quality.
Thank you. Thank you.
Director Barkley, do you have any questions?
Well, I'd just like to first congratulate President Carter and Mike Connolly and the team on a great job of getting this report completed and the positive reception from the public. And I read through it, and I've talked to a number of people, and there's a bit of excitement, that's going on right now about us moving to electrification. I know during our budget hearing last year, we heard a lot of concerns about electrification from various stakeholder groups. Were any of those involved in the process of the study?
Yes, we were in touch with almost all of those during the course of the study. Yes. Mhm.
Good.
Director Ortiz, any questions?
Just want to second all the questions that were already asked. They're all great questions. Thank you. I also want to second all of the great work that's been done. It's important and it's really critical for us to be taking these steps. So they are well appreciated to continue to improve the air quality of our city and our residents. I especially appreciated the fact of looking at air quality as one of the important sectors to identify which of the stations and routes we're going to be prioritized. So I continue to support that effort in terms of really being able to pair and support with these new tools that improve air quality into communities and areas that have the highest air quality impact and the worst quality of air. So thank you so much for all of your help and your leadership on this. It is much appreciated. Thank you.
Director Miller, do you have any questions or comments?
No question, just ditto again to President Carter and the team. There was a lot of excitement during the hearing, and it's good to hear that look like we're going to reach that projected date of 2040. So the excitement is still out here. Congratulations. Thanks.
Director Jakes, any questions or comments?
No, ditto to everything that's been said. Mike, who was the artist you said did the work on the Austin? What was her name?
Shanique Smith.
Shanique Smith. Okay.
She does a lot of work in fabric. This is a metal fabrication for outdoor installation. So it's very nice. We'll make sure to send you that name.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Chairman Irvine, that concludes the questions on that item.
Thank you, Greg. Our next order of business today is a presentation on the Ventra app, and presenting today is Molly Poppy. Take it away, Molly.
Good morning, Chairman Irvine, and good morning, directors. If you can go to the next slide, please, Herb. So today we wanted to provide an update and an overview on the Ventra app and digital payments in general at the CTA. There's been a lot of work on the Ventra app since we launched it or relaunched it in September of 2020. And so we wanted to come back and talk about the great work that we at the agency have done to date and what is the plan and future for Ventra. So just a little bit of background. When Ventra launched in 2014, 2015, we also launched Ventra with contactless credit cards and Apple Pay and Google Pay. So we're actually the first U.S. transit agency in the country to accept what are called open loop payments. So credit cards, contactless credit cards and Apple Pay and Google Pay. We quickly followed with the first version of the Ventra app. It was the first of its kind in the region that would allow customers of CTA PACE and Metra to use their mobile devices to pay for all three services. And in fact, in 2016, because of the success of that Ventra app, we won the Innovation Award from APTA. And then in September of 2020, CTA PACE and Metra released what we think is and what we call the next generation of the Ventra app. So we did a full redesign and put the Ventra app on a more modern new platform that would allow us to have more robust architecture behind the Ventra app. It would support more third-party integrations, and you'll see that in the discussions that we have going forward. And then it also allows for more ongoing maintenance and update because we do know we need to continue to maintain and improve the Ventra app, but we also know our customers are going to continue to look for something new, updates and improvements throughout time. And where we are today with the Ventra app, we've seen about 5 million downloads since its debut in 2015. And what I think is a really remarkable figure is we're averaging about 1,000 new users to the Ventra app each day. So we are seeing a significant number of new users registering their Ventra cards, registering to be part of the Ventra system each day. And I think that's great as we continue to look to welcome riders back. We see individuals wanting to engage with Ventra and engage with our service. Next slide. So I mentioned the brand new Ventra App and the new platform. A couple key features of the new Ventra App that was released in late 2020. There's a brand new home screen. It really allows for a one-stop shop, if you will, of all the different major pieces that customers are looking for, from account balances to metro tickets. You have your favorites there. Trip planning can also be accessed through that, and favorite locations. We also launched for the first time a door-to-door trip planner. The prior Ventra App and all of our trackers to date do not have a transit-specific trip planner. We either take directly from Google in some instances, or it is purely a way for you to look up arrival and departure times for bus and train. So we did begin our first foray into door-to-door trip planning within the Ventra App across all of the regional public transportation providers. We also integrated with Divvy. This is a really great feature that we've seen positive feedback from our customers. We now show Divvy bike stations and Divvy bike availability in the customer to the customer in the Ventra App, and the customer can seamlessly connect to Divvy, so they can get a bike. It takes them straight to unlocks their phone, takes them straight to the camera, and they can scan a QR code right there on the bike and get their bike seamlessly. We also have nearby transit arrivals. This has been a new feature for us. The prior Ventra App made customers select which train or bus they were looking for. In the new Ventra App, we are utilizing the GPS location on your phone, on customers' phones, in order to identify nearby transit services. So we found it especially helpful for customers that are in new locations that they're maybe not super familiar with the area. They can quickly open the Ventra App, and it's going to pull up a CTA bus or train or metro or pace service wherever they are that's near them, and give them that arrival time, and then the customer can quickly trip plan. This is not specific to CTA, but we think it's important that this Ventra App is not just about CTA, it's also about Metra. We also improved the Metra ticketing process, so it's a more seamless process for customers to purchase Metra mobile tickets and to also repurchase Metra mobile tickets. Next slide. So this is actually a little bit of a preview for everyone on the upcoming app update that we will have this month. What you see on the left-hand side, that is the look at the home screen. That's what we have to date. And you will see some more realignment that we're improving, the look and feel on the home screen. You see in the favorites, you can favorite Divvy, train and bus locations. And then as you look at the middle phone there, if you scroll down to the bottom of the home screen, we are now adding ridership information. So if you recall at the start of COVID, we started to release ridership information. So we began to release historic crowding information so customers could make some decisions about when to ride and what potential crowding they may experience on their bus or train. We've now added that to the Ventra App so customers can quickly go to the bus or train dashboard or Metro and Pace to understand what type of crowding conditions they may encounter. And then lastly, we had the Divvy bike stations in the Ventra App at launch, and now we've integrated the e-bikes. So customers will not only be able to see station information, we are now adding those floating e-bikes that you now see all over the place, which is really great. Divvy had one of their strongest ridership years in 2021, and we really hope that customers, as they continue to come back to CTA, continue to look at Divvy as a great first last mile option for customers. Next slide. I touched on this a little bit at the start about the third-party integrations. So we've got the integration with Divvy, and that has been tremendous for us. But where we've really seen great progress and great growth in customers utilizing the Ventra App and finding value in the Ventra App has been through our virtual cards. So on the left-hand side, you see a picture of a virtual Ventra card in Google Pay. And then on the right side, you see a virtual Ventra card in Apple, both on the Apple phone and on the Apple Watch. Since launch, we launched the Apple Pay in October of 2020, and we launched Google Pay in May of 2021. Since launch, we've seen over 450,000 virtual Ventra cards get created. So we've seen many individuals convert a Ventra card from a plastic card to a virtual card, and we've also seen many instances where customers are really going creating a virtual card right from scratch. They're not even going to the process of buying a plastic Ventra card. They're going straight to a virtual Ventra card. What the virtual Ventra cards allow is it has the customer has their card right on their phone. So they're no longer having to sort of dig through, trying to find their plastic card, look to see where it might be. It's all right there on their phone. And if they're adding value to the Ventra card or to their Ventra card through their phone, it's really great that the card is right there. They don't have to, they've already got it in their hand as they're looking for information, looking to add value, and they just tap and go. It also is a really seamless tap. If anyone's ever used it, for Apple, you don't even need to wake up your phone. You literally can tap your phone from a dark screen right on the Ventra readers to ride seamlessly. For Google, it's just a quick, you just need to tap on the phone to just light it up and you can tap and go. What's also great is even if your phone dies, there is a residual battery that will stay for a while. So if you have a virtual card on your phone and it dies there at the end of the day, you still will be able to ride because that battery will keep it active. Next slide. So one of the key components of the Ventra app and something that we are continuing to focus on is we want to make sure that we have a strong maintenance and update schedule for the Ventra app. We're really following what we've seen from what we all see from major technology companies. We see Google and Apple putting out operating system updates all the time. We see app updates coming out all the time from some of our favorite apps. And so CTA with our partners at Metra and Pace and our contractor are really working to constantly update the app and constantly make back office changes, both to bring new features, but then also to address any bugs and defects that may be identified by the user. One of the best ways that we know to try to identify bugs and try to improve usability for riders is to allow them to test the app and allow them and have it really the app be part of their daily lives. We did have a robust testing process with what we call beta testers, public beta testers before the app launch. COVID sort of complicated that. It was hard to find people that were going to consistently be riding transit that wanted to be a tester, but we did have a really good feedback from the public before we even launched the app. And then as we've continued to move through and have the app in the public for longer, we've gotten some feedback from the customers. Specifically, we've gotten some feedback even from some of our directors on different issues that they've identified in the Ventra app and that we've worked to fix. And so we've found that public engagement and that ability to have the public look and see things that maybe testers, we have good testers, but maybe the testers aren't identifying or maybe CTA staff's not identifying. But we do, as I mentioned, we do actively monitor the app and especially the trip tools, because that really is the newest piece for us. That's something that we are taking a step beyond our comfort zone from what we have in the trackers or what we had in the prior app to ensure that we're really identifying those bugs and fixing any unexpected behavior. And as I mentioned, as you saw on the prior screens, we have an upcoming app release that has some really great features, the e-bikes, the passenger crowding. You'll also see some Metra ticket product changes that are coming in March of this year for a new update of the Ventra app. Next slide. The last piece of this is, the Ventra app is one component of the digital experience or the customer focused experience that we have from a technology perspective. And we're really focused on updating and improving the Ventra app, but we have a host of other customer focused, customer engagement, both digital tools and also comes in hardware form as well, that we are looking to update. Right before COVID, we approved a full back office change to Ventra. So what we call Ventra 3. In the coming years, you will see a full back office revamp and improvement of Ventra. There'll be a transition to what's called open architecture, which again, the way we talked about the Ventra app, it allows for more seamless third-party integrations. That's also what we're working on here with the full Ventra revamp. You will also see brand new Ventra readers. There's going to be some digital redesign to our Ventra vending machines as well. On the tracker side, we are in the process of updating Bus Tracker. We're doing a full redesign of the Bus Tracker website to make it mobile responsive. Anyone that's currently used our Bus Tracker knows it's not really mobile responsive. So when you open the Bus Tracker, the website on your phone, it's not a great experience. So we're working to make it mobile responsive. And then we're taking other opportunities to improve the look and feel of Bus Tracker. And then also looking to see if there's any back office changes that we can make to improve the overall accuracy of Bus Tracker. There's been tremendous improvements in recent years on data analysis and how can you use data and big data to improve accuracy of location. And so we also are working on that. And then last, you saw the link to the crowding tool in the Ventra app. And if you may recall, also as part of COVID, we launched a pilot project to understand real-time passenger crowding on bus. We are currently working through the future of that. What is the future of being able to provide real-time passenger crowding data to passengers? And then also looking, can we take that a step further and really start to give sort of predicted passenger count. So not just what's the current condition on the bus, but when the bus gets to the stop that I'm at, what could be the passenger crowding. This is something that we continue to work on. We had great success with the pilot project on 79th Street bus route, and we're looking for how can we make that a system-wide deployment and what would be all involved from a cost perspective and a management implementation. So that's a very quick rundown of the Ventra system and the Ventra app and digital payments. It's been about 18 months since I last talked to you all about the Ventra app, and we thought it would be a good time to come back and talk about it, knowing that we have a lot of updates and plans for improvement on the horizon.
Greg, you're muted. Okay, well, while Greg's unmuting, so thank you, Molly. I appreciate the detailed presentation, and I'm glad we're getting an update, and I'm excited to see Ventra 3.0. Yeah, you and I have had a lot of conversations about Ventra, about the trackers, and I know all of this is invading your sleep and keeping you awake at night, and I appreciate your dedication and your commitment to making all this work as well as it possibly can. Can you talk about the there have been a lot of issues people have had about that I've had with the train tracker reliability, bus tracker reliability. Can you kind of break down what's the difference between Ventra app issues and tracker issues that we've experienced? Because I know it's incredibly complicated. But if you could kind of give us a thumbnail sketch of these issues, it'd be really appreciated.
It's always hard for me to do a thumbnail sketch. I always feel like I put too many words, but I'll do the sort of quick. So the bus and train tracker, those are CTA built. From train tracker perspective, that's a CTA built tracker. And how the train tracker works is it takes data once a train starts to move. So once a train leaves the terminal and it starts on the tracks. So that's how we start to get real-time tracker information for train. And the way the predictions work is it is relative to what the schedule. So what we say the train should be at, say, Wellington Brown Line stop, and where the train's current position is. That's how we predict that information and predict the real-time arrivals. For bus, we have a vendor called Clever, and they do similar. They look at the bus's current position relative to what schedule, and then they predict arrival times to a stop. And the way those work is it is direct data from the bus. So it is information that's coming straight from the bus, and then we publish it. And then how the Ventra app takes it is it takes it a step further, if you will. The Ventra app takes the API feed, so it takes the data feeds, takes the information from those CTA trackers, and then publishes it in the Ventra app. What goes a step further from Ventra is it's not just taking that data that we get from the trackers, it's taking real-time information, like real-time location information from the customer. So it is then integrating that with the real-time location information to pull additional information. It also then integrates with Metra and Pace. So it's not just a bus, it's not just CTA train, it also is Metra, train, it's Pace, bus, and then there's also alerts with each one of those systems as well. So it's about 6 to 7 different API feeds, or also called GTFS RT feeds, that it pulls in along with Divvy bikes, and takes all that information and publishes it in the Ventra app. So on top of taking the GPS location what we found with issues that we've identified, and we actually do have a fix that will be going in Thursday night into Friday. So by the time of the Great St. Patty's Day Parade that's coming back, we're going to have that issue addressed in the Ventra app. What we were finding is there was a timeout issue, if you will. There was when the API feed, when the Ventra app was calling the API feed to get new information, it was not able to pull the information fast enough before it timed out. Now, that's actually what you would want the Ventra app to do. You'd want it to call the API feed, and if it's not getting information because maybe the bus isn't moving or the train's not there, you'd want it not to report information. But what was happening in our particular instance is the way it should work, it was actually timing out before it could get real-time data, so before it was getting some data, and it was happening specifically right before a train pulled into a station. So basically when a train moves from 3 to 4 minutes out from a station, it goes to due. The Ventra app would try to call that information. It would not get the information back from the API feed to say that the train was due. And so then it would say, oh, well, I'm not getting any information from the API. The train must not be coming. And so it drops it off the tracker. And so that's what we found is the issue, that this particular timeout issue. We were able to monitor it, see it in real time, and develop a patch relatively quickly. And like I said, it would be deployed and fixed for Thursday night into Friday morning. I know it's one of those where Director Irvine, we've talked about it for many times now, and it is a really complex and complicated process, but I hope that gives a little bit of insight of how the trackers are great. They've been around for over 10 years with CTA, so we've had a lot of time to improve and grow those. And then the Ventra app really is that next generation, that next step of building on those trackers. And we're really taking the learnings that we had from the tracker releases 10 years ago and trying to improve the Ventra app.
No, I appreciate the detail, and I know it's hard to simplify it. So for outside the Ventra app, so when if a train just drops off the tracker, the train tracker, or a bus just drops off the bus tracker, what's going on there?
Yeah, so there could be a host of different things that are going on. There could be a delay. So the bus, has a breakdown, a maintenance breakdown, so the bus is no longer moving. So it eventually leaves the tracker. Same thing with train. If there's a delay for whatever reason, we typically say delayed on the trackers. But you will also see if a train doesn't move after a designated amount of time, it will no longer show up. In other instances, it could be a communications issue. So we see a lot of times in downtown areas, and I'm sure folks have also seen this with any of their rideshare apps, there's called urban canyoning, where you don't get real-time information that the GPS is not reporting because of the tall buildings, or in other areas of the city, there's poor connection because of, there's only 3G service, or even, pretty sporadic service in certain areas of the city. So there's really a host of different causes of it, and we have robust monitoring to try to tease down to what the issue was. And so we were able to identify the issue, apply a patch. It took us about 2 weeks from start to finish, and we also have 6 to 8 days of testing. So we have a robust testing schedule. And so there's going to be a host of different reasons why. We have the monitoring to address it, and then we have a great team that can identify the issue, develop a patch pretty quickly, and then do all the robust testing before it goes to the public.
And Molly, I really appreciated in your presentation how you emphasized the importance of people giving feedback about their experiences when they're using the app, using the trackers. What is the best way for them to get that feedback to you and your team?
So there's a couple different ways. We monitor feedback that comes through the app and Play Store. So the App Store and Play Store both have ways for you to report feedback and provide feedback on the Ventra app. We also get feedback directly to our customer service. So they would email or call Ventra customer service. It's customer service at ventrachicago.com. They can email it, or then they can call our customer service line as well. So there's multiple different ways for customers to provide that feedback. And we also really do look at social media as well. I spend a fair amount of time on social media looking at feedback. We try to not just make it as something where the customer has to take a whole bunch of steps to try to tell us that there's a problem. We really do look, if we see some tweets or things, we do have individuals monitoring Twitter and Facebook to say, hey, we saw some chatter about Ventra. Is there an issue? And that's a way to do it. So we have sort of direct touch points, and then we also go out looking for feedback as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm always going to be in conversation with you with this stuff, I think, but I don't have any more questions for now, and I really appreciate all of your efforts.
No, and I mentioned, and the feedback from you is amazing, and the feedback that we get from all of our customers is great. The point of the Ventra app is to service the customers and ensure it's a seamless service for them. And so we do want to get that feedback and make sure that we're taking it and applying it quickly to improve the Ventra app. So I look forward to many more conversations with you as we continue to move forward and we have more updates and more features to show you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Barkley.
Just one quick question, Molly, and thank you for the presentation. How are we planning to promote these updates to our customers?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit with Director Irving. I think with the Ventra rollout specifically, when it first rolled out, it was a bit of a bumpy road to start, and I think we've had challenges going forward of looking for ways to fully promote Ventra and be really excited about it. So one of the ways that we do promote it is through emails, and we're looking to step up and have more direct emails to our customers about the Ventra app. We also do have promotion that we do of the Ventra app through social media. So you'll see a lot of social media posts about the Ventra app. And then very recently, you will also see posting and encouragement of individuals to use the Ventra app from some of our third-party partners. Just this week, Apple put out an email to all of their Apple Pay users in the area about the virtual Ventra card and encouraging individuals to download the Ventra app and use the virtual Ventra card in Apple Pay to ride CTA or ride transit to the parades. So we do primarily social media. We do direct engagement with customers, and then we also take advantage of some of our third party and their outreach to further promote Ventra.
Thank you.
Greg, you're muted again.
Director Ortiz.
Yes, I just want to say congratulations. This is really important. It is incredibly helpful to have this very user-based approach and a one-stop shop approach as well. So the connections with our other transit partners, I think, are really important, especially Divvy. So congratulations again. I'm excited to make sure, as Director Barkley mentioned, that people know about it, that people are excited about using it. And I think it'll make a really big difference for everyone in terms of just knowing what's out there. The other piece that I really like was when you're in a place that you don't really know, how do you access those other or know about other forms of transportations and routes that are there nearby. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Director.
No further questions.
Director Ortiz and Director Barkley, I hear both of you in terms of the importance of marketing, what we're doing here at CTA, and particularly the customer-facing features. And I just want to let you know, we do have a new position in our budget this year to hire a director of marketing. This is part of my effort to really want to amplify and market a whole lot more aggressively what CTA does. As part of my effort to obviously bring ridership back to CTA. Clearly, a portion of that person's portfolio will be looking at how we amplify and continue to market and build on a lot of the work that Molly has done to promote the Ventra app, to really make it a much more well-known and understood technology improvement that CTA has invested a lot of money into.
Thank you, President Carter. Director Miller, do you have any questions?
No question. Good job. Good job.
Director Jakes. Director Jakes.
Question, Greg.
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me? No, I don't have any questions.
No questions. All right, then we're finished with the questions, Chairman Irvine, on that matter.
Thank you. Since there's no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Chairman Irvine.
Yes.
The meeting is adjourned and we'll take a short 5-minute break, please, before we start. Good morning again. We're ready to start the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Chairman Silva, we're ready to begin. Chairman Silva.
Unmute yourself, Chairman Silva.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, sir.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the March 9, 2022 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, Director Ortiz,
Here.
Director Jakes,
Here.
Director Miller,
Here.
Director Irving,
Here.
Director Barkley,
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 6 members of the committee present, sir.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of February 9, 2022. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be walking through the January results here for revenues and expenses. On the next page, you see January revenues. You see Farebox and past totals coming in slightly better than expected for the budget by about $300,000. It's also interesting and important to note that the variance to January of 2021 were up almost $5 million from where we were this time last year. Reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected, but again, that is a reduced level by half of what we have historically received and is also dramatically lower than what we actually give out free and reduced fare rides. Non-fare box totals coming in slightly below budgeted expectations due to some accounting treatment on non-capital grant revenues. So overall, for the month of January, we come out positive to budget by about $100,000 on the revenue side. On the next page, we talk about the January expenses, and we see positive variance on labor, material, fuel and power, injuries and damages coming in as expected, and security services slightly positive. Other expenses are coming in unfavorable by about $4 million due to timing of invoices at the end of the year and beginning of the year, and we expect this to reverse as we move forward. Overall, for January, we see total operating expenses coming in positive to budget by about $2.2 million, and coupled with the positive variance on revenue, we see a total variance of plus $2.3 million. On the next page, we look at our public funding, and this is an amalgamation of both 21 and 22 results. So here we see sales tax that's coming in for November of 21, coming in positive to the amended budget by 14.5 million and to the original budget by almost 16 million. PTF for February of 22 is coming in positive by about 3.8 million. And we see real estate transfer tax for January coming in positive by about 3.3, and the PTF on RET an additional 200,000. ICE funding for November of 21 is coming in positive to the amended budget and original budgets. So overall, we see about $14.5 million positive variance to the amended budget of 21. And then we see about $23.5 million of positive variance to the original budgets, respective to 21 and 22. On the next pages, we break that out by year. Here we have the page for 2021 results. And as you can see, dropping to the bottom line here, we see a positive variance of over $200 million to the amended budget for our various public funding lines. And to the original budget, we're almost $260 million to the positive. So again, very good, strong results through 2021. And then flipping to 2022, we still have not received sales tax results as expected for January, as it lags 3 months. But we have received PTF through February now, accreting to about $5.4 million of positive variance. RET for January, again, is 3.3, and PTF on RET for January is 200,000. So we have an aggregated positive variance so far to date on public funding for 2022 of almost $9 million. On the next page, we talk about our federal funding and what we've been drawing down over the course of the pandemic. As expected, we have now fully exhausted our CARES funding, as you can see here. And then with regard to the CRISA and ARP funding, we've made a small draw against the CRISA funding of $10 million, or about 3% of the total allocation. We still have remaining, as you can see from the far right column, over $1.2 billion of funds remaining. It's also exciting to note that within the last few days, we did receive notification with regard to ARP discretionary funding that we've previously talked about, that we applied for and that we were the only entity regionally able to apply for. And we received 118 million, 118 of ARP discretionary funds. So we're very excited about that allocation from the federal government as well. On the next page, we talk about our commodities. As you probably see at the pump and in the news, there's a lot of volatility, particularly on the spot market with regard to our fuel. We are looking and actively pursuing purchasing additional volume for 2023 in particular. Since the last meeting, we've been able to buy 2 additional blocks with 1 more block within the last day or so of volume. So the 2 additional blocks bring us from 20% to 30%. And then that last final block brings us up to 35% that we just purchased. So again, we're looking for very selective opportunities. It's a very volatile market. And we're again trying to dollar cost average our purchases to try to lock in the most favorable pricing that we can. Fuel is an important part of our budget, but just to kind of put it in perspective, it's about 40 million out of a $1.7 billion budget overall. Power and natural gas, we're locked in for the foreseeable future, but we will again look for opportunistic buying opportunities there as well. That concludes my remarks for the January FAB, and glad to answer any questions.
Chairman Silva?
What price are we forecasting for oil and gas, okay, going forward? How do you take your decision to buy or not to buy?
Yeah, great questions. There's a lot of speculation as to where oil pricing is going to end up, and that fluctuates wildly from day to day and hour to hour. What we have been able to do to date is, again, work with our partners at Ameresco, who is our fuel advisor, to look at opportunities to buy based on where trends are. As I said, since the last board meeting, we've been able to buy 2 tranches at the 270, 275 range. And then within the last couple of days, we've been able to buy another opportunistic buy at 309. To put that in perspective, we're currently in a market where 316 is the current market price. So again, we're looking for dips in the market to buy, some additional volume when we're looking to buy. And what I mean by that is that we're again trying to dollar cost average. We do not need to buy all of our volume right now. So we have several more months to lock in what we need for 2023. And as such, we're not trying to flood the market with buy orders, which would just have us locking in at very, very high prices. And again, trying to dollar cost average based on, what our needs are. Again, trying to get to that about 75% of our expected volume for the year. And right now we're locked in about 35. So we're about halfway there of what we need for the full year. And again, there's some pressures that are obviously driving the market up, but there's also, if things start falling into place with regard to other world events, maybe you start seeing some downward pressure on pricing as well. And again, we still have several more months to buy the remaining volume of 2023 need.
Thank you.
Director Barkley, any questions?
Just a comment. I want to commend President Carter and Jeremy and the team for the award of discretionary ARPA. It was your excellent management of the CARES and CRISA funding that we previously received that put CTA in a position to be eligible to apply for the funding. As you may recall, in fact, CTA was the only service board in our region that was eligible to apply for federal discretionary funding. And I think this funding will be critical in helping us to recover from the impact of the pandemic. And just thank you for your efforts in helping to secure that extra funding.
Thank you. Director.
No question.
Director Irvine?
No questions. Thank you.
And Director Miller was no questions. Director Jakes?
Questions?
Director Ortiz?
Congratulations again on acquiring additional funding. And thank you for being so thoughtful about when and how to purchase. I know these are difficult times to try to figure that out, but I trust that everyone's being thoughtful as to when and how to manage those risks and opportunities as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Silver, there are no further questions on this matter, so we can move to agenda item number 4.
The next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures under which the Chicago Transit Authority may issue one or more series of corporate purpose debt obligations payable from the sales tax receipts fund, authorizing the issuances of sales tax receipts revenue bonds series 2022, authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures under which the Chicago Transit Authority may issue second lien obligations payable from the sales tax receipts fund, and authorizing the issuances of second lien sales tax receipt revenue bonds series. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. And for a little bit of background, in 2020, the board authorized 4 bond transactions, 2 refunding transactions, and 2 new money transactions. The existing line of credit allowed us to temporarily fund projects for one of those new money transactions. And as such, we were able to delay the sale until now, which allowed us to save interest costs. CTA is seeking approval for a new money transaction to fund various capital projects, including RPM, RLE, various vehicle, track, station, and security improvements. The funding source for the bonds is the sales tax revenues. The sales tax revenue bonds 2022 ordinance authorize a principal amount not to exceed $350 million, which is up from the previously authorized $200 million. It is backed by a pledge of our sales tax receipts and PTF, which is our normal bond structure for bonding for capital projects. Again, the proceeds of the sale will reimburse a portion of the line of credit and fund projects in our CIP, capital improvement plan. The sales tax bond team remains the same with the addition of Loop Capital as a co-senior manager based on the larger deal size. We're proud of the fact that the underwriting team represents a 100% women, minority, and disabled veteran firm-owned representation within that team. The senior manager remains Cabrera Capital Markets, a Hispanic firm based here in Chicago. Bond counsel will be Mayor Brown. Co-bond counsel will be Shaw Legal Services, an African-American firm. Disclosure counsel will be Thompson Coburn. The financial advisors will be Mahanti Garjula, a woman-owned firm, and Blue Rose Capital Advisors. The trustee will be Zion's Bank Corp. And again, we're proud of the fact that the underwriting team is 100% WMBE for this transaction. That concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
what will be the effect of interest rates, okay, moving, having a very high volatility?
Yeah, so that is, part of the underlying reason why we want to move here quickly. We're still at, to kind of put it in perspective, there's a lot of volatility in the market, in all markets right now, but we still are at, those historic lows in the municipal market. So it's still a very advantageous time for us to issue bonds. Based on current market rates, we estimate that this bond deal would still be able to be priced below 4%. So again, what we're trying to do is trying to get this deal positioned so that we can take advantage of these, these market rates at the current point in time before they start edging higher and higher, primarily driven by inflation and other world factors that are going on.
But you're comfortable, okay, that our projections, okay, don't end up, okay, having a lot of volatility, okay, and changes, okay, in interest.
Yes, we're watching the market on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis with our underwriters, particularly the lead managers here, and evaluating the market. And we do have the ability to, again, reposition the deal if there is too much volatility on a particular day. So we are evaluating that very, very closely. We want to make sure that we get best execution on the transaction. We're an infrequent issuer, so that will make these bonds more appealing to investors out there. But again, we're not necessarily at the lowest of the lows, but we're still in that bandwidth of historically low interest rates. So again, it's a very advantageous time for us to price. But to your point, we are evaluating volatility on a day-by-day basis, and we'll be taking that into consideration with regard to our pricing.
Thank you.
Director Silva, I think it's also important to point out that because of the volatility that's particularly happening in the stock market, a lot of investors are looking to municipal debt and other instruments now to just park their money because we don't create the same level of volatility. And it's just a locked-in rate of return that you can pretty much depend on. So in some ways, this could be an opportune moment for us to be going into the market. While I agree with Jeremy, what's going on in the market right now is so unprecedented that we have to be very careful to make sure that we're picking the right time to do this. But I think it'll work to our advantage ultimately, just because of how the market is reacting to the war and the other issues that are starting to impact other commodities like oil and gas, as Jeremy was mentioning earlier.
Thank you.
Director Barkley?
Well, great job in securing a good interest rate. That's good. And also, I'm pleased to see that we're utilizing minority, women, and disabled veteran firms on the financial team. As I mentioned in the briefing, Jeremy, I'd like to see similar efforts to incorporate minority, women, and disabled veteran-owned law firms to help us by serving as co-bond counsel, or otherwise they're out there. And I'd like to see more effort in that in the future to capture that group, so that there are Hispanic firms out there, Black firms, women-owned firms that can certainly participate, and you can pair them with the larger majority firms. And I think they can benefit from that experience, so that at some point they can be lead bond counsel on some of our transactions.
Absolutely.
Director Irving? Any questions?
No questions. Thank you. Thanks for all your work on this. Really amazing.
Director Miller?
No question. Good job. Thank you.
Director Jakes?
No question.
Director Ortiz?
I second the questions and comments noted. No further questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance amending Ordinance 021-119, approving the fiscal years 2022-2026 capital improvement program and authorizing related agreements. Jeremy Fine.
Yes, good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'm here today to present an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the 2022 through 2026 Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, as well as an intergovernmental agreement with the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. In November of 2021, the board approved the 3.474 billion CIP, and we are now proposing an amendment to incorporate additional known changes. The amendment is being done to include a grant award of up to $401,550 from the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways for the engineering and design of enhancements to the Cicero Avenue grade crossing of the Pink Line. In addition to authorizing the Cook County grant award, the proposed ordinance also authorizes CTA to enter into an IGA with Cook County for the grant, which provides for the reimbursement of 50% of engineering costs for improvements to the Pink Line Cicero Avenue grade crossing up to a maximum of $401,550. The CIP amendment also reallocates prior granted funds of $18.5 million to contribute funding for various projects, including station repairs and upgrades, replacement of substation roofs, reconstruction of the Lake Street Bridge on the Green Line, special track work on the O'Hare Blue Line, final project closeout for the Quincy Loop and the 95th Dan Ryan stations, and provide the matching funds for the Cook County grant for the Cicero Avenue grade crossing improvements. The net increase due to the amendment is $18.9 million, and revisiting the 2022 through 2026 CIP to $3.493 billion. And it's also important to note that this will be the first of many amendments anticipated for 2022 as money is received from the federal government through the infrastructure bill. That concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
What is the matching price that we have to do ourselves?
With regard to, these are just a reallocation of funds that we're reallocating from prior projects to new projects. So the matching funds have already been kind of applied for these projects, and it differs. But again, this is just a reallocation of funds that we had originally scheduled for various projects that are being reallocated to new projects.
So you do have the funds?
Yes. Yes, and we, in some cases, it may require some additional CTA bond funds, but yes, these are all program dollars that we have or expect to have that will be applied for the various projects that these funds are being reallocated to.
Okay, thank you.
Director Barkley. Director Barkley, any questions?
No question.
Director Irving.
No questions, thanks.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
Question?
Director Ortiz.
No questions. Thank you.
Chairman Silva, a couple of things. I moved this too quickly to agenda item number 5. We need leave to place the agenda item number 4, the bond ordinance, on the omnibus for board approval.
Yeah. So we go to number 5.
No, we just had 5. We didn't get the bond ordinance on the omnibus, so we need leave to place the item agenda item number 5 on the omnibus for board approval. So
may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
And that's the bond ordinance, agenda item number 4. Now we need leave for agenda item number. No, we're still on our questions. No, we're finished. To leave agenda item number 5 on the omnibus, Chairman Silva. Since there are no further questions, we need leave to place.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
We may now proceed to agenda item number 6, sir.
Okay, we go to item number 6. On next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a ground lease of authority property located at 429 North Franklin Street, Chicago, Illinois, Brown Line. Bill Mooney.
Good morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing a ground lease of 8,018 square feet of real property located at 429 North Franklin to NWC 429 Franklin LLC. The initial annual rent of the lease would be $52,250 with 2% in annual rent escalations for the use of the property as a parking lot. The term of the lease is 99 years. For the purpose of protecting and preserving all CTA's rights of the Brown Line structure and right-of-way, the lease provides for two separate use areas, a license area and a lease area. Under the terms of the agreement, CTA has a right to enter the property under emergency purposes for maintenance of its transportation system, which runs over a portion of the parcel, as well as to terminate the lease portion with 180 days notice and a license portion for 30 days notice. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Irvine,
Yeah, the only thing I'm just wondering, is this plot of land too small for any kind of development there to be feasible?
Fundamentally, what's really unique about this parcel, Director, is this is right north of the Mart where we kind of curve off of Wells Street and back around. And so this is a plot of land we ride over kind of the large portion of, and therefore it really is undevelopable. Its highest and best use currently remains a parking lot, which was what the proposers came up with. We offered it just for a general ground lease, and that's kind of the best use that the market's said. And I'll be honest, that's what it's been for many, many years now.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Jakes. No. Director Ortiz,
I'm comfortable with this decision. I'd like to maybe add a follow-up. That's more of our land that we have for CTA for its use and how we want to use it overall for best use. Thank you. No further questions.
there are no further questions, Chairman Silva.
So are we going to,
We need to get this on the omnibus, sir.
see there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz. You may now proceed to item number 7, sir.
See, our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a right of entry agreement with Rebuild Foundation for authority property at the 95th Street, Down Ryan Station, North Terminal, Chicago, Illinois, Red Line. Bill Mooney.
Good morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer again. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance to authorize a right of entry agreement with the Rebuild Foundation for space at 95th Street to Dan Ryan Station in the North Terminal to operate live programming of the DJ booth associated with CTA's public art installation, An Extended Song of Our People, or ASA. As part of the 95th Station project, the Astor Gates was commissioned to produce 2 original pieces of art for the station. The North Terminal received an interactive art space for the development of a DJ booth. As part of the installation, Mr. Gates committed to live programming for a period of 5 years. The artist seeks to continue producing and presenting live music programming during morning and evening rush hours for the benefit of CTA's customers, no more than 2 times a week, generally Mondays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and Fridays from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. CTA has negotiated a right of entry agreement with the artist through December 31st, 2023 to allow for this program to occur. The right of entry is at no cost to Rebuild Foundation and can be canceled by CTA with 30 days notice. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes, Director Ortiz.
It's important and appreciated to have art in our stations. I think they increase the experience for everyone that rides our buses and trains. And so I support this effort, and thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Silva, there are no further questions. from the
Since
board.
there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second,
Moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Ortiz. Move to the contracts. With A1, sir.
Our next order of business is contract number A1, an antifreeze recycling contract.
Any questions, Chairman?
No, I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller. Director Miller,
No question, I'm sorry.
Director Jakes,
Question.
Director Ortiz.
no questions.
We may proceed to A2, Chairman Sullivan.
Our next order of business is contract number A2, a request for proposal for the manufacture and delivery for buses and spare parts contract.
Questions, Chairman?
I really don't understand the timing of when are we going to start buying spare parts for the electric buses.
So Chairman, we buy these spare parts as we buy the buses. So we when we buy the buses, we make sure we buy corresponding spare parts with those buses.
So we're looking at our inventory, okay, that we don't end up, okay, with a lot of
Yes.
inventory.
So they look at it. They had pre-production and design review meetings. And so they determine what we need for each individual bus, how much they think we need to have in inventory for that. So they're very careful about that. And they work closely with my supply chain staff as well. So we make sure we have space for it and we determine what we need for each bus that we have.
Thank you, Helen.
Director Barkley,
Nothing. No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
Then
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
Thank you. We may proceed to B1.
Our next order of business is contract number B1, a change order for an all-electric bus order contract. I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes,
no questions.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
Thank you. We may now proceed to number B2, Chairman.
Our next order of business is contract number B2, a contract to maintain CTA's clean agent fire prevention system. I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
Questions.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
We may proceed to B3, sir.
Our next order of business is contract number B3, a maintenance inspection contract. No questions.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes,
Questions.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
Thank you. We may proceed to number B4, sir.
Our next order of business is contract number B4, a change order for the repair of an electric motors contract.
Question, sir.
No, I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes, Director Ortiz.
No questions.
We may proceed to B6, sir.
Our next order of business is contract number B6.
No, so I'm sorry. It should be number B5.
B5,
Yes, sir.
P5, a change order to furnish and install vision deterrent devices at various CTA locations.
Any questions, sir?
Contract. No questions for me.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes. Director,
No question. Sorry.
thank you. Director Ortiz,
No questions.
thank you. We may now proceed to B6, Chairman.
Our next order of business is contract number B6, a contract to furnish and deliver plumbing supplies. No questions.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes,
No question.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
We may proceed to B7, sir.
Our next order of business is contract number B7, a contract for painting services at 23 rail stations. Do we do with our people, we do the painting of the stations?
So on this procurement, we went out, no, we're having small businesses. We had them bid on the work, and they're going to be doing the work under this project.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes,
Question.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
We may go to C1, sir.
Our next order of business is contract number C1, a request for proposal to furnish the pickup, processing, and deposit of CTA bulk currency. Who used to do it before?
Garda. Garda did it before.
The same one?
Pardon me? No, it was Garda.
Garda.
Yes. And Davis came in significantly lower.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller. Director Miller may have stepped away.
No question. Sorry.
Thank you, Director. Director Jakes,
No question.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
We proceed, Chairman, to H1.
Our final order of business is contract number H1, a request for proposal for security guard services. Is this one that we are proposing, okay, is that the first time, okay, he works for us?
So it is the first time. So we're recommending two companies. So it is the first time Intercon Security Services has worked for us, but Monterey we currently have. We're currently using Monterey. And Intercontinental has, they've been in business for 48 years. They have 30,000 employees, and they've done work for Caltrans, LA Metro, Houston Metro Transit Authority, Port of New Orleans, and Port of Galveston.
And what about Monterey?
And Monterey, we are currently using them and very happy with their services. They've also done work for UIC, Chicago Marathon, Soldier Field, and Shed Aquarium.
Okay, very good. That's a DBE, that's a Mexican company.
They're both actually MBEs. They're not DBEs, but they're both MBEs.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, they did both graduate out of the DBE program. So as Ellen said, they're very successful firms, MBE, but DBE graduates.
Very good. Thank you.
Director Barkley.
Well, just great job to the finish line. This has been long anticipated as we try and get our ridership back up. As you know, safety issues are number one right now. I'm sure we're all being inundated in some way, shape, or form. But I'd like to see us get the word out about our efforts with security. We mentioned that in the briefing earlier this week, So that's very critical, because I think I think the city needs to know what we're doing, that we're making strong efforts, that we're arresting people, having people arrested, that we're prosecuting people, that we're holding people accountable. And the security is just so critical to the future of the agency. So I'm glad to see we have something in place that's more on a permanent basis.
Director Barkley, to that point, this afternoon, I'll be doing a press conference with both the mayor and Superintendent Brown to amplify both this contract as well as other actions that the police department are taking to support the need to deal with crime on CTA. And I agree with you, and as you and I have talked, we're going to do a much more aggressive information campaign around the efforts that we do take to deter crime on CTA, to make sure our customers understand that we do care about this issue and we are trying to aggressively address it, and making sure they understand how it's happening on a regular basis. I agree with you that I think there hasn't been as much attention given to the things that we are doing around crime as there has been to the crime that has occurred on CTA. And while I recognize and agree that any crime on CTA is unacceptable and certainly something we can improve on, I don't want our customers to think that we are not concerned about this issue and we are not taking steps to try to address it. This contract, as you know, will more than double the resources that we have for private security contract services, and will give us the tools that we need to really expand our visibility on our system and hopefully start to address the concerns that we hear from our customers about their personal safety, with the level of visibility that will show them that there are people out there monitoring the system and trying to address issues where we can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Irvine, any questions?
No questions. Just thank you, President Carter, you and your team for working on the communication about everything that's going on behind the scenes, and I do hope that we get more people out there and have people feel the system safer. So thank you.
Director Miller, any questions? Director Miller, you may have stepped away. Director Jakes.
Question for President Carter. Will the words prevention and intervention be used a lot during the press conference or moving forward? And the reason I ask that question is because there's definitely been a lot of conversation about it, and I am in favor of that. Something needs to happen. It is a city problem. It is a national problem as it relates to crime. But my concern is that the message doesn't go out that we need to arrest our way out of this. That we are being that CTA is being proactive in prevention and in some of those cases intervention. So I guess it's a statement and kind of a question.
Director Jakes, that's a very good question. I think it's obviously we have our security guard forces, which are unarmed security guards, who have been both trained in de-escalation techniques and are really on the system to deal with violations of our code of conduct and other issues. They're not there to arrest anybody. They're not there. They don't have police powers. They don't have the ability to arrest anyone or anything that aggressive. And what we're hoping is that an expanded and increased effort on that part will be a nice complement to what CPD is doing, which is obviously much more in the realm of, both, engaging as our security guards are, but obviously following up if necessary with appropriate action in terms of arrests and so on and so forth. I think that, we are hopeful that by having additional enforcement of our rules of conduct, it will deal with a lot of the quality issues that we also get complaints about on CTA's system, while also being additional eyes and ears so that if there is a need for a police interaction, that we can get that information to them quickly and timely so that they can respond accordingly. But I think that the combination of both police resources and our security guard resources should both address your issue as well as address the need to take obviously appropriate action when we have customers on the system who are engaging in conduct that is clearly inappropriate and needs to be addressed accordingly.
For the situations, and maybe this is for Brad, and for you too as well, Mr. President, situations that happened yesterday, the alleged shooter on the train, and the alleged shooter is apprehended. What is the relationship with CTA and the Cook County prosecuting attorneys? What do we have a relationship there? Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
I think short answer is yes. Brad and our lawyers work closely with the state's attorney's office in supporting their prosecution of individuals who commit crimes on CTA. We also work very closely with the police department in providing them with information to support them in their investigation that leads to arrest. As you know, one of our biggest tools are the camera system that we have on CTA, and in the incident that happened last night, we were very quick to identify the cameras that captured this incident and getting that information to the police so we can help them in an investigation, and hopefully it will lead to some appropriate resolution or action by the police in the near future. That same video obviously becomes very important for the criminal prosecution of any individuals who commit crimes on CTA. And so we work very closely with the state's attorney's office and with the police department to make sure they have whatever evidence we can provide them of an incident so that they can adequately and appropriately take the appropriate legal action against any individual who's committed crimes in CTA. Brad, I don't know if you have anything more to add to that, but that's sort of how we sort of engage in the process. And we will, and I should point out, one of the things we do is we also monitor the case so that we know what's going on with it, if it's going to be settled in any way. We're aware of that. If we have concerns about the outcome, we have the ability to raise those concerns with the state's attorney's office and ensure that we are, to the extent that we have the ability to influence it, are making sure our points are well known and understood about what action has occurred. And I would say that that's especially important when the crime involves a CTA employee. We take those acts very seriously. We are very engaged with both police and the state's attorney's office in terms of resolving those issues. And we follow those and work very closely with our employees who are involved in the incident and with the state's attorney's office to make sure that they are, that individuals who assault or batter our employees are properly dealt with in the criminal justice systems in an appropriate manner.
Yeah, that's correct, President Carter. We have attorneys who are dedicated to these particular matters and work in tandem with the state's attorney's office, Chicago Police Department, our internal departments, to do whatever we can to assist and coordinate and take care of the folks that are affected by this. Yes.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Director Ortiz.
Yes, I second the comments. And I'd like to consolidate my comments to three. The first one, thank you to the team for supporting MBE, WBE, DBE. And also, ideally, I'd like to encourage our support for Chicago-based companies. I think that makes a huge difference. And so I appreciate all efforts on that space. The second is definitely supporting de-escalation. And that was just to Director Jake's comment of how do we support de-escalation? I think that helps everyone, both other users of the system as well as individuals that are involved in these actions. And then the third one is just continuing to support this spirit of being welcoming and pleasant experiences for all of our riders. So to the extent that we are leveraging and supporting both safety and welcoming experiences, I think the work from including arts and music support that effort, and these efforts on safety do as well. So I see those as complementary and supporting of each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ortiz. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to number 8A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 11 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Ortiz. Chairman Silva, we may proceed to number 8B.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
By Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz on the omnibus, which includes all the ordinances and the 11 contracts. Director Silva.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Chairman Silva, we're taking the vote on the omnibus.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. You vote yes on the omnibus?
Yes.
Yes, I just want to get on the record. Director Irving.
Yes.
Director Miller. Director Miller, are you here?
I don't see him on here anymore, Greg.
Okay. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yes votes. The omnibus passes. Director Miller has stepped away, one abstention. We may now proceed to agenda item number 9, sir.
Finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
By Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take a vote on the motion to adjourn. Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Irving.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The Finance Committee is adjourned, sir, and we'll just take a very, very short break before we start the board meeting. Thank you. Good morning. We're about to start the regularly scheduled meeting for March 9th, 2022, of the Chicago Transit Board. Chairman Barkley, we may begin whenever you're ready.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for March 9th, 2022. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Yes, Ms. Ortiz.
Present.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Silva.
Here.
Director Barkley.
Here.
Chairman Irving.
Here.
I'm sorry. Let me start all over again. Director Ortiz.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Silva.
Here.
Director Irving.
Right here.
Chairman Barkley.
Here.
Let the record show that Director Miller has stepped away for a few minutes.
Our first order of business is public comment. Greg, any public comment?
Yes, we do. We have one speaker and one written comment. We'll start with the speaker. Mr. John Mitchell, you may address the board.
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. My name is John Mitchell, and I regularly ride the CTA train for work and leisure. I come before the board today simply to beg you to take bolder action to address the state of lawlessness that has overtaken many CTA train lines and stations. As I'm sure you all are aware, to ride the CTA now often requires one to endure public smoking, drinking, urinating, and much else. To take but one recent sad example, about 2 weeks ago, I entered the Roosevelt Red Line platform around 6:30 in the evening, where I was greeted by a group of young men and women openly smoking cigarettes and marijuana, drinking hard liquor very openly, and listening to loud music. When the train arrived, the first car I stepped on reeked of marijuana smoke. And when I abandoned that car for the adjacent one, I was confronted by loud music and a man smoking cigarettes across from me. I've been riding the L for many years, and these sorts of experiences used to occur once or twice a year. And now they occur almost every day. Just yesterday on the Green Line home, for example, I rode on a smoke-filled car. I'm sure the board has heard plenty of these stories, or perhaps experienced them directly. Anyone who rides the trains or reads the local news knows that the L and many of its stations are in a state of anarchy, where some do anything they want, and the rest of us lose hope that anyone is in control. My view as a daily rider is that CTA's current efforts to address this anarchy are simply not enough. I know that CTA has taken some steps, and I greet these investments as a positive step in the right direction. For example, I regularly see the vested security guards CTA recently contracted with. However, much more needs to be done. Just the other day, I passed a group of guards on the first level of the Clark and Lake station, talking among themselves with their backs turned to surrounding passengers, while on the second level, multiple men openly drank alcohol and others smoked on the platform. I implore you, this board must push the organization to take stronger, bolder, more visible action to address this crisis. I fear the long-term viability of transit, which I love and take every day in this city, is at stake. As workers return to the loop, and as tourists and business travelers return to Chicago, this is the worst possible time for CTA trains to be dirty, smelly, smoky, embarrassing, and unsafe. This epidemic of unruly, antisocial behavior on CTA trains must be your top priority as a board, and I believe demands greater investment, diligence, and accountability. Unless the environment on CTA trains dramatically and quickly improves, I fear that all your future investments are at risk. What I ask is the point of modernizing the blue line, extending the red line, investing in clean buses if there are no riders left to serve. Please, please, please do more, and please do so quickly and visibly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We do appreciate your comments. They have not fallen on deaf ears. I can tell you that we are working to improve the quality of safety and security and to address those issues. And we've engaged staff, and staff is working with us to address many of those concerns that you raised. But we take them very seriously, and we're working on that as we speak. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you and good luck to you all. The better work you all do, the better it'll be for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Greg, any further public comment?
Yes, I have one more written statement, sir. From John Paul Jones, the president and founder of the Sustainable Englewood Initiative. Good morning. Chicago Transit Authority Chairman Lester Barkley, Vice Chairman Arabella Rosales, and fellow board members, President Dorval Carter, and fellow CTA staff. Sustainable Englewood Initiatives is most excited about the CTA staff decision to advance its Go Green strategy. For years, CTA wrestled with how best to approach green strategies as one of the nation's largest transit agencies. This year, CTA moves boldly to the future. Therefore, we support today's ordinance to purchase electric buses and to install battery charging stations across Chicago as part of the agency amended 2022 financial budget and 2022-2026 capital improvement program budget. SEI, alongside community partners Grow Greater Englewood, are excited with the possibility this budget plan offers and its potential good for Greater Englewood transit users and station anchors. Furthermore, we thank the CTA board and staff for their decision to advance resources to ensure public safety along the red and blue lines. For too long, transit riders hesitated to utilize various rail stations. The recent announcement to increase rail station security brings added comfort to daily riders and visitors. To this end, we thank the CTA board and staff for its continued zeal to improve delivery in the Greater Chicago area. Thank you for your civic leadership. John Paul Jones, President, Founder. Chairman, that concludes the public comment section.
Thank you, Greg. Our next order of business is the approval of 2 sets of minutes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 9th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jake, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Miller? I'm sorry, Director Miller stepped away. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Irving?
Yes.
Director Silva? Director Silva? The motion is to...
Sorry, yes.
Yes. Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes, sir.
I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of February 18th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jake, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Miller? I'm sorry, Director Jakes?
Yes.
Irving?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
Chairman, that motion is approved as well.
I'm here, Greg.
Director Miller,
Yes.
we've had 2 motions on the 2 sets of minutes, regular and special of the full board. How would you vote on both of those?
Yes.
Thank you. Then each one passes with 6 yes votes. We can now move on to the next item, Chairman Barkley.
Our next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Brad, that there's an executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, there will be a closed meeting in executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, Subparagraph 1 of the Open Meetings Act.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for the reasons so stated by counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jackson, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Miller? Director Miller? He was back. Director Miller?
Muted.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley,
Yes.
Director Miller, you're muted, I guess. Well, we do have 5 votes, so that motion passes, sir. So we are now in executive, we'll be moving into executive session shortly. We are now returning to the open session of the Chicago Transit Board regular meeting. Chairman Barkley, we may begin.
I will now entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Irving,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion passes with 6 yes votes, sir.
We will now take up executive session item number 4A. Brad?
Chairman, item 4A concerns the board's review of a Section 28 Hearing Committee's recommendation regarding the CTA's discharge of Mr. Jonathan Tam. Mr. Tam requested a hearing to contest his discharge pursuant to Section 28 of the Metropolitan Transit Authority Act. A hearing was held before the committee, and after considering the evidence presented in the hearing, the committee recommended that this board sustain Mr. Tam's discharge.
I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance sustaining the discharge of Jonathan Tam.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, moved by Director, excuse me, Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
Our next order of business today is board matters. Are there any board matters today, Greg?
No, sir, there are not.
Our next order of business today is a report of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Chairman Irvine?
Thank you, Chairman Barkley. The Committee of Strategic Planning and Service Delivery met earlier this morning. The committee approved the committee's February 9th, 2022 minutes. The committee next reviewed a presentation on the authority's electric bus program. And finally, the committee reviewed a presentation on the Ventra App. And that concludes my report, Chairman Barkley. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Irvine. Our next order of business is a report from the Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget. Chairman Silva.
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning. The committee approved the February 9, 2022 committee minutes. The committee also reviewed the following 4 ordinances. An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures under which the Chicago Transit Authority may issue one or more series of corporate purpose debt obligations payable from the sales tax receipt fund, authorizing the issuance of sales tax receipt revenue bonds, Series 2022, authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures under which the Chicago Transit Authority may issue second lien obligations payable from the sales tax receipts fund, and authorizing the issuance of second lien sales tax receipt revenue bonds, Series 2022. An ordinance amending Ordinance 021-119, approving the fiscal years 2022-2026 capital improvement program and authorizing related agreements. An ordinance authorizing a ground lease of authority property located at 429 North Franklin Street, Chicago, Illinois, Brown Line. An ordinance authorizing a right of entry agreement with Rebuild Foundation for authority property at 95th Street, Dan Ryan, Station North Terminal, Chicago, Illinois, Red Line. The committee also reviewed 11 contracts. The committee placed the 4 ordinances and the 11 contracts on the Omnibus and recommended board approval of the Omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Barkley.
Thank you, Chairman Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the Omnibus as stated by Director Silva.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jake, second by Director Ortiz. Vote on the omnibus. Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
Chairman, that motion passes with 6 yes votes.
Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney.
Morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer with your monthly construction project update. And we'll move to our first project where we normally start, our Jefferson Park O'Hare signal upgrade. The project remains tight to schedule and on budget. Since we last talked, the most significant kind of activity has been around the cutover of O'Hare East, interlocking and O'Hare terminal interlockings and the associated relay rooms. Can move to the photos. This is the new local control panel that ultimately operates all the major interlocking components for that interlocking. It was delivered a couple weekends ago and loaded into the tower room where we actually have a towerman that sits during normal operations and tells the trains which track they're entering and exiting on and provides that kind of that routing through this panel. It's kind of a modern version of a system we've used for many, many years now. It's a very hardened kind of panel because it does get a lot of touch and use, and it was a kind of a big point to get this down there. Next slide. This is equipment being brought in. So as we've been doing kind of weekend shuttle train operations to provide more access to the contractor, part of what happens there is they load out these little shuttle trains, these little work trains that they have and load back in equipment here. These are all the signals and route selectors and various pieces of wayside equipment that they're bringing into the tunnel to start installing along the tracks for use by train operators. Next slide. And then the other really important piece is the equipment for the relay room started showing up. And this was a big sigh of relief for many of us to have that equipment on site and in hand as it was being shipped from Harrisburg. And here it is. One of those challenges is getting stuff into the subway. And so this is a vent shaft actually for our emergency ventilation system that we've opened up and are craning the equipment down, and it got loaded onto carts then and was carried kind of and directed to the rooms where it's being installed. And next slide. And here's some of the equipment actually being installed. So those racks I just showed you in the last photo on the crane are actually now in the rooms and being wired up. So this is kind of a big milestone in the project, and we're moving forward really well actually out of the terminal operations. Our next projects are Jackson Park track and structure improvements. Work along 61st interlocking is coming near completion. We've been focused really on kind of that interlocking that allows access to what we call lower yard, as well as kind of the movements on there's an upper yard there at 61st Street, as well as the main line tracks for the Jackson Park branch. And then we've continued structural renewal on the 63rd Street leg of that Jackson Park branch. And these have been big kind of line cut weekends where we've gone and completely disassembled the structure and rebuilt it over a weekend, kind of with a full closure of the street below us. If we move to those photos. So this is part of the special track work that's been 100% renewed with the ties. You can see kind of the newer ties there. They're darker black and have kind of the silver screw spikes in them as they're fresh spikes. And these tend to be really long ties, about 16 or 18 feet wide, take a little more effort to get in and out. And here's some of that structure work I was referencing. So here they're rebuilding the cross girder, which is the perpendicular piece of structure in the air there. And while we're doing that, we actually have to shore the rest of the structure. And those are those big yellow posts in the front. They're temporary shoring that are carrying kind of the load of that structure while we take apart those elements below it. And you can see how all this activity goes across 63rd Street. And what happens is we set up early in the morning on Saturday, we take everything apart, we put in the new components, we end up detailing it out, finishing it all off, and then re-clearing the street by Sunday evening. Next slide, please. This is our Irving Park Station escalator canopy replacement. We can move forward really to the Irving Park Station work. So the contractor has been focused on demoing out the old escalator and to be able to get the large components, really the truss system, that's the structural elements that holds the escalator in place. They actually had to build a series of rigging systems. So as they cut it out, they can lower it down and then ultimately feed it out through the ground level entrance here. So there's actually a series of kind of hoist chain elements. They cut it into pieces, they lower down the next section, they cut it into pieces, they lower down the next section, and they do the same. And the same thing will be happening as it goes back in. Next slide, please. Here's that same hoisting system at the top. Next slide. And this is the new escalator truss. So this is the new component that will be going in the upcoming months. This is is a galvanized truss. So this is something different we have not historically done with escalators. So galvanization adds zinc to the steel, making it more rust proof ultimately. And so as this is kind of an open weather station that does get a lot of exposure in the elements and our customer use, it helps the longevity of the unit itself. These are expensive units, and so spending a little extra to make sure that steel lasts is really important. Next slide. So this is a new project this month. This is our traction power upgrades for Kedmill, Edmonds, and Sacramento. This is part of our blue line capacity expansion efforts. So we've had a demand increase in the blue line over many years, and we don't have current power capacity to be able to support a lot of that. And we have a couple projects on the plate that are around increasing that support of those facilities. This is about adding new equipment at Kedville, which is right near Irving Park on the blue line, Edmonds, which is up near Jefferson Park, and Sacramento, which is close to California. And by putting in new equipment allows us to actually be able to increase that capacity output from those substations, as well as, this equipment is well aged and has seen a lot of intense use over many years now. And so it helps with the longevity of those substations. It's a $7 million construction project with $12 million overall budget. And the work's being done by John Burns Construction Company. We can move to some slides here. So the work's just getting going. They've been doing field-based measurements to verify kind of the equipment that they've ordered and the installation process around this. So here they are within Sacramento, taking some of those measurements this is inside the building, and the piece of equipment you're looking at, there's a rectifier. That's actually what converts the power from AC to DC. And it connects to transformers, which are on the other side of the wall. Next slide, please. And ultimately, then we get a new duct bank, which connects kind of through the wall from that first piece of equipment, the rectifier, to that transformer outside. And this is in the factory. The equipment's been in fabrication for a bunch of months now. Next slide. The other big kind of component over the last month is all this equipment's gone through its KEMA testing. So this is a safety verification performance test that it has to go through, where they actually mimic it in use and push it to its failure mode limits to make sure it fails in a safe manner as designed. So as kind of a lot of things we've done during the pandemic, where travel's been a little tougher at times, we did a remote testing here, kind of over Zoom, where somebody in the factory was physically walking around, allowing us to witness the test in this remote section. Next slide, please. This is our non-revenue vehicle maintenance facility at 63rd and Calumet. Work continues on schedule and on budget. Next slide, please. So one of the interesting points we had when we were in the plan development phase for this project was the project itself is directly across the street from Dulles Elementary School. And one of the community feedback points was they asked that we think really creatively how we could engage the students to talk a little bit about STEM education and the work that would be going on outside their windows. So we've worked with the school and the principal of the school to come up with kind of a series of interactions with the student body, and this is the first of them. So the gentleman in the foreground here is Charles Freeman. He's our project manager on the project. And Charles and the project team went out to Dulles Elementary and put on a presentation explaining kind of what the project's about and how it's being executed, and what type of opportunities are in this type of industry and construction and engineering backgrounds, and the type of schooling you would pursue for those things. And and as we get more into the ground on that project and we start having more heavy equipment and more interactions and the building goes up, we're expecting to have more sessions like this, but some of them, not necessarily fully on site, but right in the footprint of the site, where we can do things outside the construction fencing and talk about the equipment being used and some of the physics behind the engineering that's going into it, and a lot of the roles that are going on in those jobs, not only from the trade level. We're in an industry that really is dying for trade labor at this point, and they're great career paths, as well as the finished work on the engineering and construction side. Next slide. And last month I showed you some of the preparatory work to create kind of the footprint for the actual construction site. So here was kind of the last of it. We had been ripping out a bunch of track, and we actually had to reposition a grade crossing from separating out kind of where the storage portion of the yard is versus where the new shop's going to be. And so this is this refinished grade crossing. Next slide. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
Chairman Barkley, any questions for Bill?
No questions, Bill.
Director Silva, any questions?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg. Thank you.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
There are no questions for Bill, sir.
Thank you, Bill. We'll now call on Michelle and Juan Pablo Prieto to make their RPM and diversity presentations.
Thank you, Chairman. Chris Bouchel, your Chief RPM Officer. The RPM project continues tight to schedule and on budget. If we can go to the next slide. So there's a lot of work going on. There always is at RPM. We stay busy. One of the particular things that's happening, we're starting the demolition of the western side of the tracks in the area of the red purple bypass. So we're sort of arcing away from working on the bypass itself and arcing towards sort of building the bridge underneath that. So we've done a lot of demolition on the track side in that area. On the western side, the 2 tracks on the western side, we're providing service on the eastern side of that 4-track corridor. So on the working side, we've been demolishing tracks, systems, and have started the demolition of the structure. Additionally, we're doing some completion work on the bypass, kind of connecting or signalizing, doing work at the western or the railroad northern end of the bypass to put an interlocking in place. That work continues. We're running trains on it, but we're just continuing with the signalization and the completion of that interlocking. We continue with various renovations on the Ravenswood connector tracks, as well as the North Main track, the red line tracks in that area, where we're putting in new foundations for those tracks as part of the overall modernization of the effort. And then on Lawrence Birdmar segment, we continue to work on the segmental box girder bridge. That's progressing nicely. The contractor is falling into a production mode. You'll see a couple of photographs, and then after Juan Pablo presents, we'll have a short video that will put those photographs into a little bit of a context for you. If we could go to the first photographs. So this is the segmental box girder installation. You can see here the gantry above that structure that's sort of looming above the segments. That's really the gantry that holds those segments in place as they're positioned. You can kind of see one of the segments being positioned here in this photograph. And then if we go to the next one. And here you can see that as those segments are in position, then we have tendons to go through the bottom, large cables that are post-tensioned after those segments are in place, and that provides the final strength that's needed for that span of the bridge. And at that point, the box girder sort of moves on and does it at the next set of columns or piers. And we'll see that a little bit more dynamically in the video to follow Juan Pablo's presentation. Next. And of course, outreach continues. All sorts of outreach. We've been in parades. We've provided information to our constituents. We have supported the various open for business efforts that are out there to minimize the impacts, not only of our project, but also of the pandemic that has created so many impacts across our city. So we have done weekly updates with the various wards that are impacted. We've had some virtual office hours. As I mentioned, we were in a parade, the Lunar New Year parade up in at Argyle. And then we had the announcement of the Elevating Future Scholarship Program, accepting CPS student applications. We're putting out a newsletter or information letter really to the communities, both about impacts of the construction, as well as impacts to service, various service reroutes and other things that may be occurring. And then we continue to provide updates to all the neighborhoods, but a couple in particular that have a lot of impacts, for example, the Roscoe Newport neighbors. So with that, I will turn it over to Juan Pablo for his update.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. The Diversity Programs team continues to meet monthly with the contractor to discuss DBE and workforce outreach and compliance. And these meetings serve as a great tool to assure that our units are aligned as we conduct separate meetings throughout the month related to individual trade packages and workforce opportunities. The contractor right now is busy engaging their subcontractors and making sure that they're connecting with the workforce partners to identify any and all opportunities for the upcoming construction season so that the workforce partners can present candidates for the subs to interview. We also meet regularly with our workforce partners and the contractor to coordinate opportunities and recruitment and training efforts. As Chris did mention, we were very excited to announce the Elevating Future Scholarship Program applications. We did end up receiving 52 applications. So we're excited to see as they go through the review with Chicago Scholars, who ends up being selected. This year, we anticipate awarding 2 scholarships. As of February 28th, 2022, 71 unique DBEs have been awarded over $185 million on the design build contract. 27 of those DBEs are new to CTA. The design build contract has also produced over 638,000 labor hours, and the 1,362 individuals that have worked on the project have earned over $36 million. While we're proud of our efforts and attainment to date, we continue to strive to achieve more. So we'll continue to host outreach events where appropriate to present opportunities to the community. That concludes my portion of the report. I'll turn it back over to Chris for our video.
All right. Thank you, Juan Pablo. Herb, if you could play the video, I will endeavor to narrate and provide some more information as we go through it. So you can see the gantry here getting ready to move. It has completed the span to the right of the gantry. It is extending itself to the next 2 piers. That leg goes over, sits on the new pier. Get an idea for the dynamic of this process. So there it's spanning between 2 new piers. The segments come into place. They are being stored on the pier that was the segment, the span rather, that was just completed. They are set into place incrementally. After they're set into place, they get sealed between the segments. And then we put post-tensioning in, as you saw in the last photograph. We pull those tendons, those cables tight, and then the segment is set, and we move to the next segment. Takes about 4 to 5 days per segment. That will probably get reduced to 4 days as the crew gains efficiencies throughout the process. Any questions?
Thank you, Chris and Juan Pablo. Our next order of business is new business. Is there any new business today, Greg?
Can't hear you, Greg.
No, sir, there is no new business, sir.
Since there is no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Yes. Move.
Sorry. Moved by Director Ortiz. I'm sorry, moved by Director Jakes. Director Ortiz, second.
Second.
We'll take the vote of Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
That was a yes, sir.
Yes.
Director
Yes.
Jakes.
Yes.
Yes, from Director Jakes.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Director Irvine has stepped away. Chairman Barkley.
Oh, I'm a yes. I'm still here.
You're still here.
Thanks. Yep.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley, yes. That motion passes with 6 yes votes, sir. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone, and we hope to.